The movie starts off the coast of Japan, where the Coast Guard spots a small boat drifting for 2 days with no one on board. They go in to check it out and find some documents and an envelope, but they have no idea what they mean. Since the boat's empty, they get ready to tow it back, until suddenly the whole thing shakes, and there's a massive explosion in the water nearby. A crack opens in the ceiling of an underwater tunnel, and blood just rains down onto the cars below. That's when we meet Rando Yaguchi, Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary. He and a bunch of other officials get briefed about the tunnel incident, but nobody knows what caused it. Everyone goes quiet when they see a huge bloodstain in the water. The government starts evacuating the tunnel fast. Inside, people hear creepy noises above them, and some bystanders filming catch something insane, a giant creature coming out of the sea. Yaguchi sees the footage and rushes to warn Prime Minister Seiji Okuchi, but the Prime Minister laughs it off, thinking it's fake, and blaming the tunnel collapse on a random earthquake. But then the cabinet gets actual footage from the coast, and now nobody's laughing. A massive tail is smashing through boats and bridges as it heads for land. Scientists warn that it could come onto land, but the higher-ups still don't fully believe it. The Prime Minister is told to calm the public, so he goes on live TV to say everything's fine. Right as he wraps up, bad news hits. The monster's already in the city. Panic breaks out everywhere as people try to run for their lives. Now we see the creature up close. It's a weird early version of Godzilla, and it's bleeding from its gills because it can't breathe on land. The government scrambles to make a plan. They start warning everyone that the danger is real. Godzilla just keeps moving forward, crushing buildings and cars under its massive body. It's crawling slowly, but it's unstoppable. Some officials push for a military strike, but others say evacuation needs to happen first. They order everyone out, but Tokyo is so packed it's nearly impossible to evacuate in time. Citizens are told to leave their cars and listen to the police. Meanwhile, Godzilla keeps going, crushing everything in its path. It even climbs up a tall building and brings the whole thing down, killing everyone still inside. The governor of Tokyo calls for military support. The problem? Japanese law doesn't allow the use of military force unless there's a foreign attack, so the Prime Minister has to give special permission. He agrees, and the self-defense forces are deployed. Helicopters are sent to the scene, and ground troops help with evacuations. As Godzilla moves forward, it suddenly collapses. It still can't breathe right outside the water. Officials are confused, but then the creature starts acting strange. Its body glows red, arms pop out of its gills, and it begins to evolve, growing even bigger and letting out a deafening roar. It stands up on 2 legs and starts walking faster, smashing through everything in its way. Helicopters arrive and notice the creature looks different. They get into position and wait for the go-ahead. Once they confirm the civilians are out, the Prime Minister gives the order to fire, but a soldier spots people still stuck on the streets, so the attack is cancelled to avoid any casualties. The Prime Minister says firing now would ruin the military's reputation. Seeing them back off, Godzilla seizes the moment and escapes back into the sea. The damage is catastrophic, and officials begin trying to assess what just happened. Yaguchi is especially upset. He feels like the government completely failed the people. Military aircraft go out to search for Godzilla in the ocean, but they come up empty. A general warns that this thing is going to come back, so the army starts prepping. Tanks, artillery, and air raids are all lined up, ready for the monster's return. While all this chaos is unfolding, Yaguchi pulls together a team of scientists to figure out a way to stop the monster. One of the biologists throws out a wild but possible theory. This creature isn't stuck in one form. It can evolve in multiple stages and adapt to anything. Land, sea, you name it. Meanwhile, the team is also trying to crack a major mystery. What does a monster this huge even eat? And how does it keep moving non-stop, leveling buildings without running out of energy? Then, one scientist drops a game-changing theory. Godzilla isn't eating in any normal way. It's powering itself with nuclear fission. Later, as they analyze its path through the city, the team confirms it. Godzilla's emitting nuclear radiation wherever it goes. That means people aren't just in danger from the destruction, they're also being exposed to radiation. That's when Yaguchi meets Kyoko, a US government envoy. She's here with a request. The Japanese government needs to find a man named Maki, a scientist who actually predicted the creature's appearance. From their conversation, we find out that Maki had been exiled years ago for speaking out against the government's use of nuclear energy. He believed it was a global threat, but now Kyoko says he secretly returned to Japan just a week ago, and he may have been working on something big. His research could hold the key to stopping Godzilla. The US offers Japan a deal. Give them Maki's location, and they'll hand over his research. Yaguchi agrees. Later on, Yaguchi meets up with Kyoko again. He shares the last known location of Maki, who's now been missing for 7 days. Then he brings up something strange, the boat the Coast Guard found just before the monster first appeared. It turns out it belonged to Maki. Yaguchi hands over the documents recovered from the boat. In return, Kyoko gives him Maki's research, and in that research, Maki had already given the monster a name, Godzilla. Kyoko also shares a classified report explaining Godzilla's origin. It reveals that radioactive nuclear waste had been dumped into the ocean, and a deep-sea creature had been feeding on it. Over time, the radiation mutated it, until it transformed into the massive creature now terrorizing Japan. She also shows Yaguchi a mysterious diagram that Maki left behind, one no one's been able to understand. Yaguchi immediately orders the scientific team to analyze it. It might hold the answer they've been looking for. Meanwhile, the scientists begin studying Godzilla's biology, and what they find is shocking. Godzilla's body contains unknown elements that humans have never seen before. Even more insane, he has 8 times more genes than a human. In other words, he's possibly the most evolved life form on Earth. They discover that his blood acts like a cooling system for his body, needed to regulate the intense nuclear energy inside him. That explains why he rushed back into the ocean after his last attack. He was bleeding heavily and needed to cool down. With this information, the team formulates a plan. Force Godzilla to burn through all his nuclear energy until he shuts down, then inject a coagulant to freeze him solid. But there's still one problem. They don't know what material can actually do the job. Before they can act, breaking news hits. Godzilla is back. And this time he's bigger than ever. He reappears along the coast of a new city, but now his appearance has changed. His skin looks like hardened armor, and his tail is longer and more monstrous than before. He starts stomping through the city, leveling everything in his path. People flee in terror as buildings collapse like paper. Godzilla towers over the skyline. Every step is pure destruction, and he's heading straight back toward Tokyo. The government goes into panic mode. There's a nuclear plant in Tokyo, and if Godzilla reaches it, the outcome could be catastrophic. Since Yaguchi and his team haven't finalized their plan yet, the Prime Minister makes a tough call. Deploy the full force of the Japanese military. Tanks roll out, helicopters take to the sky. The assault begins with choppers blasting Godzilla's face with heavy artillery. But even after taking direct hits, Godzilla doesn't flinch. Nothing is working. The Prime Minister gives the go-ahead. Unleash everything they've got. A squadron of jets launches missiles straight at Godzilla's head. Massive explosions light up the sky, but when the smoke clears, Godzilla is still standing. Not a scratch on him. Every single airstrike failed. Then the tanks move in. They open fire on his legs, trying to slow him down. Artillery joins the assault, pounding him with non-stop blasts. But Godzilla just keeps advancing, barely phased, as he approaches a major bridge. The Air Force makes another desperate move, dropping heavy bombs from above. Godzilla responds with raw power, grabbing the bridge and smashing it down on the tanks. The impact wipes out several units and even damages the military's command center. And still, Godzilla walks away without injury, steadily making his way toward Tokyo. The soldiers are devastated. They've exhausted their entire arsenal. With no options left, Japan makes the call. They need help from the United States. The US agrees to intervene and dispatches 3 stealth bombers armed with top-secret bunker-busting bombs, the kind powerful enough to rival Godzilla's own destruction. Japanese officials realize the blast radius from these bombs could level the city. They order a full-scale evacuation, forcing everyone in-house into underground shelters. Meanwhile, Godzilla stands silently in the heart of the city, glowing red, his body surging with nuclear energy. The American bombers arrive overhead. One by one, they drop their payload. The bombs slam into Godzilla, breaking through his armored skin. Massive explosions erupt, and blood gushes from his wounds. Godzilla lets out a deafening roar, but then something terrifying happens. Godzilla begins to evolve. His red glow shifts into a blinding purple light. He opens his jaws wide as the energy intensifies, and thick black smoke pours from his mouth. Then, in an instant, he unleashes a wave of scorching fire, sweeping across the city and vaporizing everything in its path. The fire focuses, narrowing into a concentrated energy beam. Godzilla fires it into the sky, obliterating one of the American bombers. The others retaliate, launching more missiles, but Godzilla suddenly snaps his mouth shut and fires laser beams from his back, targeting the incoming missiles and wiping out the remaining bombers in seconds. Then he turns his energy beam downward, slicing through the city. Entire skyscrapers vanish in a single sweep. Streets are engulfed in destruction. Even the aircraft carrying the Prime Minister and top government officials is caught in the blast. Completely destroyed, Tokyo burns. The devastation is beyond comprehension. But after the chaos, Godzilla finally stops. His energy spent, he enters a dormant state, frozen in place, standing still amid the smouldering ruins. The next day, Yaguchi, still alive after the devastating attack, arrives at the new scientific headquarters. The Japanese government is in disarray. Most of its leaders were killed in the blast, and the country is now leaderless and terrified. But Yaguchi refuses to back down. He believes there's still a chance to stop Godzilla, especially now while the monster is dormant. A new prime minister is quickly appointed, but fear has paralyzed the government. No one knows what to do next. Thankfully, most of Yaguchi's science team survived. He urges them to keep fighting, for the sake of Japan. He sends a crew to the ruins to collect DNA samples from the sleeping Godzilla. The scientists begin analysing the blood right away. Meanwhile, Kyoko meets with the new Prime Minister. She explains that the US is ready to cooperate, and that China and Russia are also sending their best scientists. The world is watching closely. If Japan fails to stop Godzilla, the entire planet could be at risk. Soon, the international scientific team arrives. After analysing Godzilla's DNA, they make a chilling discovery. Godzilla can reproduce asexually. If left alone, he could multiply, spreading across the globe. The moment the American scientists confirm this, they notify the US government. Kyoko then delivers grave news to Yaguchi. The United States has made a decision. They're going to nuke Godzilla. There's no time to waste. If the monster wakes again, he might set his sights on North America. World leaders agree. Godzilla must be destroyed, no matter the cost. Japan is given 2 weeks to evacuate every citizen. Afterward, the US will launch a nuclear strike. They promise to help rebuild the country, but only once Godzilla is gone. The Japanese Prime Minister has no choice. He agrees. Panic spreads across the country. Highways clog as millions flee their homes. The entire nation begins an impossible evacuation. But Yaguchi won't accept that fate. He's determined to save Japan without a nuclear strike. He urges his team to work around the clock, using the evacuation window to put their freezing plan into motion. Every second counts. Still, one obstacle remains: deciphering Maki's mysterious blueprint. The team studies it relentlessly, and then they crack it. The diagram must be interpreted in 3 dimensions, and the procedure must be executed with perfect precision. That breakthrough leads to another stunning discovery. Godzilla doesn't rely on nuclear waste to survive. Instead, he converts water and oxygen into energy, using an internal biological mechanism unlike anything ever seen. He may be the most dangerous life form on Earth, but now they might have a way to stop him. With this breakthrough, the scientists realized something critical. The materials they had originally planned to use wouldn't work. They had been wrong about Godzilla's biology. Now, armed with new knowledge, they scrambled to rethink the chemical formula. After a grueling week of non-stop research and poring over every detail of Maki's work, they finally found the right compound to freeze Godzilla. But there was a catch. They'd have to lower his body temperature first. This revelation reignited the team's determination. They presented the final plan to the new Japanese Prime Minister, who, like Yaguchi, was desperate to avoid a nuclear catastrophe. He gave the green light. Yaguchi immediately met with the Minister of Defense to coordinate the operation. Then, he briefed Kyoko on everything. Deeply connected to her Japanese roots and unwilling to see the country destroyed, Kyoko made a decision. She would help. Using her connections, she secured drones and advanced weapons from the US military. Time was running out. Only 1 day remained before the American nuclear strike. In a last-ditch effort, the Japanese government came together, united for one final mission to save their homeland. The operation began. Loaded trains packed with explosives were launched straight at Godzilla. The impact and detonations jolted the beast awake. As he stirred, drones swooped in, unleashing missiles and firepower. Godzilla roared to life, firing his energy beam, incinerating the drones and tearing through the city. But then, something changed. He paused. His energy levels were dropping. Moments later, he lashed out again, unleashing blasts from both his mouth and tail. Entire districts were leveled in seconds, but as the attacks continued, his power began to fade. The glowing purple beam weakened into fire, then flickered out completely. Now was the moment. The military initiated Phase 2. Detonations rocked the city as nearby buildings collapsed onto Godzilla, burying him in tons of debris. With his body pinned and his energy drained, his internal temperature dropped sharply. For a few seconds, Godzilla went limp. The science team made their move. Trucks raced toward him, carrying the freezing agent. Soldiers began injecting the coagulant directly into his mouth, the only known weak point. But disaster struck. After only 20% of the dose had been delivered, Godzilla's eyes snapped open. He roared violently, and in a flash unleashed his energy beam. The entire strike team was wiped out in seconds. Trucks were obliterated. Soldiers vaporized. Godzilla tried to escape, but just then, more explosive trains slammed into his body, detonating with thunderous force. Already on the brink, Godzilla collapsed once more. This time a second wave of trucks rushed in, and this time they succeeded. They delivered the full dose of the coagulant into Godzilla's mouth. He woke up again, thrashing violently. The trucks were crushed beneath his feet. His body glowed purple, ready to unleash destruction once more. But before he could act, the agent took hold. Godzilla froze mid-roar. His body stiffened. His glow faded, and then silence. The monster stood motionless, completely frozen. His internal temperature plummeted to minus 200 degrees Celsius. He had been stopped. Japan had won. Government officials stared in disbelief. The Prime Minister immediately contacted the United States. The nuclear strike was cancelled. Soon after, civilians were allowed to return home. The looming shadow of annihilation had finally lifted. The temporary emergency government, formed only after the loss of Japan's original leadership, stepped down. Power was peacefully handed to a new generation of leaders, with hopes they would guide the nation toward a brighter, wiser future. And Yaguchi, he made a powerful decision to share every bit of their research with the world. He believed the knowledge they had gained could one day help all of humanity, not just Japan. And with that, our story comes to an end. If you made it this far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more epic recaps. Bye-bye!